The Dershow.
There was a big story in today's New York Times, and there have been other stories in the Times and on CNN and other places trying to portray Donald Trump as an anti-Semite. The basic thesis is, of course, part of Trump derangement syndrome. He can't do anything that's good. Anything he does has to be suspicious. So what he's doing in terms of American universities and trying to combat anti-Semitism on campus must be motivated by other considerations. And to top it off, he's an anti-Semite. Well, I know Donald Trump. I've known him for a long time. I don't know him well, but I know him. I know his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. I know his daughter. I know many people closely connected to them. I know people who have served in his cabinet and his ambassadors. Become a close friend of the current Trump ambassador to Israel. He's not an anti-Semite. He's not. He has a warm spot in his heart for Israel and for the Jewish people. And what he's doing should be taken at face value. Does he have other objections to Harvard? Yes, so do I. As an American, even if I weren't Jewish and I weren't a Zionist, I would be furious at Harvard, having been on their faculty for 60 years. Furious at them. Well, look at what they did just last Thursday. They gave an honorary degree. They only gave 6 honorary degrees. They picked 6 people from all over the world to honor. And one of them turns out to be a bigoted, anti-Semitic woman who was called for an academic boycott of Israel, which would prevent Israeli Jews who are doing research on the cures of cancer to work with others outside of Israel. They gave her an honorary degree. The class marshal at Divinity School was a thug who threatened and intimidated a Jewish student just days after October 7th, before Israel sent a single troop or single soldier into Gaza. And then they gave a $65,000 scholarship to another one of the thugs who intimidated and surrounded the same student. And the $65,000 scholarship is for him to work with an anti-Semitic organization that applies a double standard to everything Jewish and Israeli. So Harvard's in a very, very, very bad situation as a good president and some good people on the faculty. But they're, the people in control, the people who decide who gets the honorary degrees. The corporation does that. And who does these other honorific things. There's a real problem. And I believe Donald Trump when he says he wants to stop the anti-Semitism. Does he also have other motives? We all have mixed motives about everything, but he is not an anti-Semite. And people point to his speech in Charlottesville. Well, people just are lying about that. CNN is lying about that. The New York Times is lying about that. Anybody who's heard the speech, and I've heard the whole speech, it's on tape. There's no doubt about what he said. He never, ever said there were good people on the side of the Nazis. He never said anything like that. What he said is there were good people on both sides of the dispute as to what to do with the monuments to heroes from the Confederacy. I know because I'm on that side. I'm a good person. And I'm on the side of not destroying monuments. I don't think monuments should get destroyed. Should they be in public places? Reasonable people could disagree. Should they have plaques that say they were on the wrong side of the Civil War? There's a plaque at Harvard Memorial Hall in memory of Nazi soldiers, Harvard graduates who died on behalf of Germany. History is history. And so Trump never said anything like that. In fact, he went out of his way to condemn the neo-Nazis. He specifically condemned them. And yet we see the same thing repeated over and over and over again. What was it called in literature? Newspeak. If that's really something that grows right out of Goebbels and the Nazis, you repeat a lie often enough and people will believe it. Let me be very categorical. It is a lie to say that Donald Trump ever said there were good people on the side of the neo-Nazis or the people who said we will replace the Jews. He never said that, never implied it, never hinted at it. What he said, and he was right, is that there were good people on both sides of the dispute as to what to do with monuments of Civil War heroes. He's absolutely right about that. I'm on that side. Many people I know who are historically minded are on that side. I have visited the graves of Jewish Confederate soldiers. I think there's one in Richmond, Virginia. And there were people, by the way, who fought in the Civil War and were heroes who were opposed to slavery. There was a woman at Harvard some years ago who put up a Confederate flag outside of her dorm room. I represented her, and I got to speak to her, and she came from a very religious Catholic family in Virginia that were strong supporters of the Confederacy on political grounds and strong opponents of slavery on moral grounds. It's a complicated issue. It's a complicated issue. Consider the Holocaust. The Pope refused to tell German Nazi soldiers that they will go to hell and burn, eternally if they kill an innocent Jewish child, because he didn't want to create a conflict between their allegiance to Germany, that is to Hitler, and their allegiance to the church. That was just wrong. But it's complicated when you have a war like the Civil War that includes people have different views on slavery. People don't realize there were abolitionists in the South, and there were slave owners in the North. In New York, I have ads from New York, old New York newspapers. A young black person, very strong for sale, New York. So there wasn't a Mason-Dixon line fence that divided people along the fence by their moral views. And then there are the complicated views of people like Thomas Jefferson, who owned slaves but was against slavery. And he put in the original draft of the Declaration of Independence, one of his grievances against King George was that he allowed the importation of slaves into the United States. He was hypocritical. Jefferson, he owned slaves. It was the most important part of the value of his property. And Monticello and his wine cellar and his books and all of that. And he didn't do the right thing. But he was a complicated guy with complicated views. He said that black people are less intelligent than white people, but they have a higher moral standing. He's wrong about both of them. There's no difference based on race about either intelligence or moral standing. Everybody is an individual. People have different intelligences and different moral standings without regard to their race. Some of the smartest people I knew as students at Harvard Law School were black and Arab and Muslim and every conceivable background. There's no generalizing that you can do there. But let me make one generalization, and that is, again, I want to be very clear about this. Donald Trump is not an anti-Semite. Donald Trump is not anti-Israel. Donald Trump is not an anti-Zionist. Donald Trump has done some silly things. He invited some bad people to the White House, and some people who he's appointed did some silly things, and they invited bad people on their talk shows. It doesn't make them anti-Semites. Maybe it makes them insensitive to the issue of anti-Semitism, but being an anti-Semite means that you yourself have to hold negative views about Jews. Today on the left, the definition of anti-Semitism is very simple, just applying a double standard, negative double standard to anything Jewish or Zionist or Israeli or anything relating to the Jewish people and the Jewish state. That to me is anti-Semitism. I haven't seen anything like that with Donald Trump.